Hello there and welcome to my Surviving Mars review. Surviving Mars is a colony management game whereby you land your first rocket on Mars and begin building the foundations for the eventuality of catering to thousands of colonists to live and work on the Red Planet. The game is developed by Haemimont Games, known for the Tropico series, and published by Paradox Interactive, who most know for their grand strategy games. When starting out a new game, you first get to choose several options to customize your experience and tailor some predefined traits and playstyles for your colony. Once these are set, they cannot be changed and they each have an associated difficulty level. You'll first choose your mission sponsor, which affords you certain buffs, technologies, and potentially debuffs the harder they are. Next is your commander profile, and unlike the sponsors, these have no negatives. These are more like a set of perks that are tailored to one aspect of the game. So if you think water is going to be your weak spot, then taking the Hydro Engineer will make your life easier. Next are the mystery events. These are a mid to late game occurrence that will present you with a dilemma and allow you to solve it in different ways. They can be pretty wacky, with artificial intelligence going wrong, mysterious life on Mars, wars with Earth, and billionaires that need help colonizing the solar system. And based on your sponsor's funding amount, you then get to decide how much stuff you want to take with you in your first rocket to Mars to get established. This is a cargo rocket primarily, and you'll need certain prefabricated buildings and resources to get you set up. The last thing you need to do is choose your starting location. You're given a fully rotatable Mars where you can pinpoint your exact landing spot, with variations in terrain type, frequency of disasters, and temperatures. The closer you are to the North Pole, the colder it gets, and there's ice dotted around. Inside craters has a really steep and uneven terrain, and out in the flat ground tends to have higher chance of meteorites and dust storms. It's one of my favorite features and does great things for replayability and trying to combat the difficult terrain. The locations are algorithmically generated, and there's a few predefined locations if you want a more secure start, so it's great to have the option of both. One thing that all of these starting options do is contribute to your overall difficulty bonus. The only objective in Surviving Mars is to complete all milestones to see what kind of score you get, and that score is multiplied by your difficulty factor. It's completely up to you whether or not you care about it, and the difficulty doesn't really make the moment-to-moment gameplay harder, but it might mean that you need to be more careful about what you build and where. Surviving Mars has pretty well-defined early, mid, and late game gameplay. In the early game, you don't have any humans, just drones that will get stuff set up and prepared for the first colonists' arrival. In the mid game, you're mostly focused on sustaining yourself and maintaining a steady growth. And in the end game, you'll be finishing any mysteries you've encountered and probably finalizing the things you need to get for a completely sustainable and renewable colony. So let's start off with some of the more unique aspects of Surviving Mars as a building and colony game. First off are the domes. Domes are the habitats which colonists live inside. They require a set amount of oxygen, power, and water to sustain the atmosphere and life within them. Domes come in small, medium, and mega sizes, alongside some other specialty ones, but generally they all operate the same. They have blank slots inside them for buildings, be it farms, living quarters, shops, or whatever else you want. However, here's the part that trips up most people. Domes need to provide all the services a person requires on their own. For instance, you can't have a dome that is all farms, and another that is all houses, and expect people to travel from one to the other for the morning commute, no matter how close they are. I mean, I feel like this is how it should work, but the entire game is designed around the principle that each dome is meant to be self-sufficient. I thought perhaps this was because suiting up for a journey outside is meant to be difficult and harrowing, and in some ways it still is, as colonists prefer never to leave a dome, but some jobs, such as working on a mine or in a factory, can mean traveling out of the dome every single day to and from work. So why there's no tunnel system or connection between domes doesn't really fit the narrative in my opinion, and I feel like if domes were set up, or mines, simple overground tunnels would connect everything together. Nevertheless, with this self-sufficient dome theory in place, the game becomes very different. You'll need to balance domes in a way that means everyone in there is happy and has their needs fulfilled, but also the greater colony has its needs fulfilled. Goods created in one dome can be shipped around, so you can specialize your dome slightly, having a farm in one, a factory in another, and having drones transport the goods around. In terms of the raw gameplay experience, the balancing act is quite good, but never feels that challenging. You'll build your domes largely in a copy and paste way, with maybe one or two interchangeable slots depending on what you need in your colony. You can eventually get big enough that you can set domes to not allow seniors, or to have a high priority for scientists, so that the right people live in the right places and find the best jobs, but this will only increase your output by a very small margin and definitely isn't a necessity. Later on as well, shuttle hubs will ferry people to and from the places that they're needed the most, so it becomes largely automated without the need to set priorities and micromanage. The next important mechanic that's different to some builder games is how resources are handled. Resources are physically placed in the world and need to be stored on resource depots. Colonists will never touch the resources themselves, only the drones will, but they're limited in how far they can move from their respective drone hubs. So the consequence of this is that drones cannot deliver something outside of their zone of control. You'll need to build overlapping drone hubs with depots in the overlapping areas if you want drones to carry resources across different sectors. You'll spend a lot of time moving resources around manually and keeping track of them. In fact, that probably made up about 70% of the gameplay for me. Although having beat the game now and understanding it a little bit better, I think I could probably get that down a bit if I tried. You'll also have to move some stuff around, especially early on, and keeping track of your different depots is paramount to a successful run. On the whole, the in-world resources are fun to manage and get kind of hard to keep track of. Sometimes one dome will suffer food issues and then you'll have to transport an emergency load of food from one area to another, and it's very satisfying when you get everything up and running by yourself. You don't have to do that anymore. The last unique thing to mention is maintenance. Every building, pipe, machine or wire needs to be maintained at some point, so they need drone hub coverage. This means that your expansion is always limited by your resource production. There's no easy way to see the cost of all maintenance at once, so you kind of have to build carefully and make sure you're not eating through your reserves of metals or whatever is needed. As you get more complicated machines and buildings up and running, they'll require more complicated resources to maintain them, such as electronics or machine parts. Both of these resources are made by humans in factories and typically come from refined metals or fuels. Interestingly, the electronics factory needs electronics to be maintained, so if you run out completely, you won't even be able to make new ones. In these cases, you can call for a cargo rocket from Earth to deliver resources to kickstart your economy again. These need to be refueled to travel back to Earth, and loading them up with rare metals will give you extra funding for future cargo. It's a nice little satisfying loop. Aside from the more unique mechanics discussed, there are plenty of familiar ones too, like an expansive technology tree, anomalies that randomly drop throughout the map, allowing you to further your technology in different ways, details about the people on the individual level and on the dome level, and disasters like meteor showers and cold snaps disrupting your power lines and energy supplies. However, a lot of stuff for me is missing, and I don't want to focus on what's not in the game, rather I just want to review what is, but I do feel it's worth mentioning some absences that I at least expected from a colony management game set on Mars. For one, there's no sanitation systems or squalor in the domes. I'm not sure where the waste goes, but it's either totally recycled or just not talked about at all here. There's no government system or laws or policies that determine how people should live or where they should work and at what age. There's no fire hazards or criminal systems, and there's no commerce or real economy on Mars, which I feel after a certain amount of colonists, you would have to start thinking about, especially for the Martian-born people there. As mentioned, there's no connection tunnels between domes or transport systems other than a shuttle that will pick up one person at a time. These are just some things I assumed a governor on Mars would have to think about, but you don't have to in the game, and I think it's worth pointing that out for others who may have assumed the same. The overall art style of Surviving Mars is one that I think clashes with the theme of the game. It feels like a Planet Coaster or a Sims type game, almost like the domes are a big theme park with cartoonish designs to the colonists and to the drones. But the environment and the outside building seems to be a little bit more realistic. Now, not every game needs to feel or look realistic. I mean, I definitely prefer the ones that do, but a game about survival and growing a colony I feel warrants a certain realistic tone to it, or needs to make you care about people in other ways. Now, when a colonist dies and you get a message about it, I don't really care. There's so many people that it's rarely an issue, and people just walk around blissfully past dead bodies. So while I do think the game has a great aesthetic, and it certainly makes it very clear as to what buildings are where and what resources are where, it lacks the grounded feeling that I think would make Surviving Mars have much more of an impact when someone dies, or lots of people start dying or start starving. This I can only describe as a lack of immersion for me. I just personally never felt that connected with anything that was going on in the game, and I never felt like anything was really at stake. In terms of the building mechanics, the UI is very clear and easy to understand. Everything is laid out in a hex grid, and it's very easy to figure out how things connect up. The resource panels and colonist panels are super easy to follow, as well as the UI surrounding the passenger rockets and cargo rockets. They easily allow you to filter what you want and show you the progress of how close the rockets are to and from Mars. Where the UI fails is with the layout of the hex grids in the menus. The buildings and technology tree are both laid out in this fashion, and for me at least, after 40 hours, I never really got used to where something is. In-dome buildings have their own section, but some production buildings are in the production section, even though they can only be built in the dome. Farms are in the life support, not production, and so is water, even though they both produce things. I often just found myself flipping between the categories over and over, trying to remember where things were, and in the tech tree, it became really frustrating to find the tech I had just researched among the grids. I know it sounds a little bit nitpicky, but when playing it, it really felt like it just didn't make sense, and the icons and hex grid just made it difficult for me to find what I wanted quickly. A new technology could shove a building in a menu somewhere and move everything else around. I mean, a simple list and color coding the buildings to their resource colors would just have made it so much clearer. Lastly, something that confused me a bit is that the days go by and people are born and die in a matter of weeks. I mean, this is obviously just for gameplay, but I'm not sure why it wasn't listed as a year and a day or something equivalent. For my first few hours, I didn't understand why people were dying, as the game doesn't really tell you that people are getting old. I was only on day 50, so it just didn't seem to add up to me, and it just makes it a little bit harder to keep track of roughly when people are going to stop working or have children and so on, if you can't really gauge the years. A great positive for the presentation is the excellent soundtrack and different radio channels, as well as the audio in the game. You can zoom all the way into the domes and hear people chatting, the sound of waves in the Wonder Dome, or water on the farms and shuttles whirring by. As for the soundtrack, I never really got bored of it, and even if you do, you can just rotate radio stations and soundtracks around. Surviving Mars has a few very specific rule sets that they want you to follow, but never properly introduce. Most of my playtime was me fighting against systems such as segmented domes and drones moving items around when I didn't want them to. When things started clicking and I played how the game wanted me to, it became extremely easy to manage and left me yearning for more to do in it. The game is designed around the automation of systems and self-sufficiency, but for most of the game you'll be building towards automation, and the systems feel like they block what you should otherwise be able to do early on, like manually move people with ease, select multiple drones and reassign them, or have more direct management of resource gathering. The engine that the game is utilizing is very impressive, with vast amount of terrain in the playable area, and never skipping a beat whether I had 100 colonists or 1,000 colonists. Unfortunately, I never really cared about them. Surviving Mars scratches the itch for me of a good builder game and resource manager. It doesn't, however, make me feel like Mars has been colonized. Because of those reasons, I feel that Surviving Mars is a good game. I wouldn't call it very good, just good with some issues if I was describing it to a friend. It's the kind of game where I might wait for a sale or wait for some interesting mods to be produced, as it actually has huge modding capabilities built into it. That's all for my review of Surviving Mars. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you want to see more gameplay, then check out my first 100 days on Mars so you can see how the game progresses and what the moment-to-moment gameplay is like. Links are all in the description, and thank you very much for watching.